Nikola Motor to introduce hydrogen electric tractor to Europe. McKinsey on how analytics drives sales growth in transport and logistics. Netradyne captures over 100 million minutes of driving video data to improve driver behavior. And El Niño could significantly slow down U.S. supply chains this winter. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we talk about all these issues and more on this week's episode of What the Truck.
What the Truck, JP? How you doing today?
Good, man. Good. It's been super busy. Lots of... Ooh.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that, Chad.
Oh, it's all happening.
What you got there?
Today, JP, we are trying a powerful Lagunita's brown sugar.
Nice.
You know why it's powerful?
I think you're about to tell me.
Well, because it's a dangerous 10 ABV.
Wow. I hope we can make it through the episode. I've also changed things up a little bit this week. Yeah, dude. I'm drinking.
What are you drinking?
Well, it is a Bell's Two Hearted, but it's in a 16-ounce can.
No.
So
they make them in tall boys now?
I'm also powering up.
You are. You're leveling up, aren't you, with your comfort beer?
Yeah. Well,
you know, subscribers are wanting to know, when are you going to shake it up?
I think I kind of...
You've established
I kind of like low key, like surprise people, you know.
Oh, every now and then.
Yeah, every now and then.
That's true. That's true. You like to shake it up, and I like that flexibility. We have some fascinating headlines this week. To me, they're fascinating.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot about technology. I mean, from Nikola with the hydrogen electric tractor, McKinsey on sort of customer-facing analytics for transport companies. But Netradyne with the computer vision, like a lot of tech stuff, but driver focused tech stuff.
Right, exactly. Like not just software, but how it integrates with the industry as a whole, and a lot of driver focused stories as well. So why don't we dive into the Nikola Motor hydrogen electric tractor in Europe? I mean, if you've seen the photos of this thing, this puppy is handsome.
It's very cool.
It's
a powerful truck. It's, from what I understand, it's an electric motor and drivetrain powered by a hydrogen fuel cell.
Yeah, basically, overall, what I see is Nikola is at a comfort level of releasing this information about what's forthcoming with their European-based cab-over model of their truck called the Nikola TRE. They have a Nikola 1 and a Nikola 2 in the U.S. Right. And now they have a TRE for Europe, which strategically makes so much sense. But
especially when you think about sort of regulations on emissions, the way that sort of length of hauls and urban congestion and all of that works in Europe.
Oh, and to add to that strategically, the ease of being able, I don't know ease, but is the best word, but their ability to be able to create the hydrogen stations with so much more facility than they will be able to do in the U.S.
Is that driven by EU like subsidies or
I don't know about that in part of the story, but I do know that who they're working with, the hydrogen partner is Nel, and they are based in Oslo, Norway.
Right, which is a huge gas and oil producer.
Ironically, if you want to put it that way, right? Or not, just like energy. Yeah, it's not ironic. But the interesting thing, actually, we're almost, before we even get to the complete story, we're already diving into this part. But one part of the story that's interesting to me is that, or interesting, and I don't know what to make of it. Like in the U.S., Nikola plans on, having 700 hydrogen stations. That sounds promising, right?
Yeah, that's big.
But only by 2028.
10 years.
Yeah. I'm like, I was thinking, okay, at first I was like, oh, the U.S. will have they're planning on us having 700 hydrogen fueling stations for these trucks.
Right.
What? That's cool. It's free. It's kind of the free market creating their own infrastructure. If the government won't do it, well, we're going to innovate and we're going to make this happen.
Right.
And then
you're like, 10 years.
Yeah. Like in 10 years, there's 50 states and it's also going to be in Canada. I'm like,
but it's also like a 10-year plan is a pretty, kind of tentative plan. Saying what you're going to do in 10 years. I mean, it's like if we said what I'm going to do in 10 years, what you're going to do in 10 years. I mean, who knows?
Well, by contrast, though, what you point that out. By contrast, one of the standouts to me about Nikola in this regard is that while a lot of work remains to be done, and that's, I guess, going back to my original point of they're comfortable enough to say, hey, we're coming out and we're doing this, even though a ton of work remains to be done.
Right.
One of the things I'm respecting about this company, such as I have learned over this past year, and their announcements and what they're doing, they have 8,000 orders, for their vehicle, is like they seem so much more grounded in realism.
Really?
Yeah.
Then who?
Say,
yeah. Okay.
A company that starts with a T.
Into the Tesla.
Yeah. Exactly. So they're grounded in realism. They're really doing it. They're creating the challenging hardware. Mm-hmm. With the and yet it's this almost underplayed story. Like we talk about EV, all these different kinds of electric.
I think part of the reason why people focus so much on EV again is because while the charging stations might not be completely built out, everyone's familiar with electricity and how electricity is distributed.
Yeah,
people aren't necessarily as comfortable thinking about hydrogen. Where to get hydrogen, how to tank up on hydrogen.
Yeah, is it as efficient is it a fossil fuel? People aren't really sure, and it is. I mean, not a fossil fuel, but it is efficient and it's clean, and they're in the engine for this thing. It's the most
abundant element in the universe.
You've said that before, and I need to remember that. Yeah. Hydrogen, even more so than oxygen.
Oh yeah, by far.
Oh wow, that's I don't know if that's a comforting thought or not. There's a lot of stars in the galaxy, but back to
back to Earth.
Nikola has a lot of torque. The Nikola engine, their tractors, 2,000 pounds. For I don't know. Should we get into the granulars? Probably not. I just think overall,
it's got. I think the main things that people will be interested in is that depending on the configuration, it will have between 500 and 1,000 horsepower. So a lot of power potentially available. It saves roughly 2,000 pounds of weight compared to a diesel engine. So in theory, depending on your pricing, it's
going to be a lot more efficient.
Depending on your pricing, you could haul that extra weight and bring in another $1,000 of revenue per load. So it's there's that kind of thing, and Brian Straight, who wrote the article, also pointed out that the 0 to 60 miles per hour time is about half of
0 to 30
of a diesel.
One of the cool things too, if you're really interested in these trucks, is their models. All three models now: the Nikola 1, the Nikola 2, and the Nikola TRE, I don't know how you pronounce TRE or Trey, are all going to be on display at the Nikola World in Phoenix, April 16th to 17th.
Cool.
After Tax Day of 2019.
We should send somebody there.
Oh, yeah. Because that's going to be fun to cover. And
I want to drive one of those puppies.
Oh, right. I'll settle for sitting in one. All right, and this is just like overall, JP. Before we segue,
it's a side note. Whenever they let journalists drive trucks, they always heavily insure them because we always crash them.
Right. Inevitably.
Like it's really funny. Like when you see like the exhibition models or the demo models that like by the end of the show, they're always like banged up and like.
Well, that's what they get for letting us drag. But I was going to say overall, like I feel like this is one of the exciting things about covering what we're doing. I feel like over the next, however many years, let's not get too greedy, like 3-4 years, like we are going to see changes in the world. Like that's kind of why we're talking about it right now, such as like it will be, and I don't feel like I'm overstating the case, somewhat like right now sitting where we are toward the end of 2018 will be a little unfamiliar.
Right.
Little
it'll
unrecognizable.
Feel like before, like in the old days.
Yeah. I really think that some huge things are coming.
Oh, for
and
sure.
It's exciting to think about and talk about. And Nikola's really doing it. I mean, dare we say under the radar because of all of the headlines that Tesla's gotten. And as much good as that has done for the industry, much good for all the Nikola has just they're just solidly putting forth a realistic model.
Yeah, the
business model and literal model of truck.
Right, and they've got big orders from big customers like Anheuser-Busch.
Yes.
Okay.
And they will have a real thing. Another story that was really interesting this week that touches on a lot of things in our industry is you touched on a report that was covered really about a month ago by McKinsey, but it's very relevant. It's how analytics drives sales and growth in the transport and logistics industry.
Yeah.
And like if I may like put you on the spot a little bit here, you note that McKinsey's article centered around 3 recommendations, and I'm wondering, can you tell us about what those recommendations are?
Yeah. So McKinsey was basically saying like, how can you use data to drive growth? And the first thing they wanted to recognize is that transportation logistics companies have a lot of data already, but they're just not using it in the right ways.
It's
they don't
like
know what
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and so the first recommendation is to wrangle the data that you already have. The second recommendation is to invest in explaining the data and keeping it simple for the sales team. And the third is to embed analytics in daily routines. And
okay, so what do you mean about the first one?
The first one is that for example, there's a huge disconnect, or what we would think of as like a data silo between sales and operations. So operations knows, if we're thinking about a truckload carrier, right? Operations knows which lanes are profitable. They know which customers are profitable. They know which accounts are making money reliably. Sales might not necessarily know those kind of efficiency metrics. They might be chasing big top line revenue from customers that don't actually net very much money at all. And they might be neglecting the accounts that might be smaller but have a bigger contribution to EBITDA. So it's about building a bridge between the data that the operations has and the efforts being pushed by the sales team. The second one is, you can't just have operations send the salespeople spreadsheets. That's not going to work.
Keep it simple for the sales team.
Keep it simple.
But not necessarily because the sales team needs it simple, but because they've got to communicate that to the customers.
Right. And they have a lot of different kinds of customers and different kinds of accounts. And it's important for the analytics team to build a model that easily translates into how the salespeople think about their customers.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting.
Yeah, and so and it needs to be actionable information. So don't give them everything you have if it doesn't make a difference in the way that they price freight. to tell them the things that matter.
It makes so much sense. I mean, there's a lot of technical innovations, a lot of like things that are really interesting about the field, but we need to make that translatable. So that report, that part of the report makes sense to me.
And the last recommendation to embed analytics in daily routines is also really crucial, because one of the big things that we hear time and time again from talking to large operations, whether they're carriers, shippers, or brokers, is the difficulty of actually establishing a data-driven culture and actually operationalizing the data to make better decisions. And so you have to. So the idea here is you start small. You start small with a couple little things. You let people get in a habit of making data-driven decisions.
Yeah, in terms of translating this data, start small in that way.
Start small on a couple little processes, a couple KPIs, just a couple things to keep in mind. Watch out for this number. Well, watch out for customers like this. To keep in mind this metric when you're talking to customers in this market, that sort of thing. And let it sort of build momentum, let it build habits, and then you can keep, as the sales force buys into it, you can keep adding more and more and really build an efficient, data-driven, sales force.
Baby steps.
Yeah,
baby steps, and it's real, because as you and I have, we've been covering this on a number of levels throughout the year, and we're hearing that brokerages are already ramping up their efficiencies dramatically by as many as 3 to 5 times.
3 to 5 times in the past 10 years. So we talked to. Well, we both talked to a number of brokerages recently, but what we've been hearing is that the individual broker in a tech-driven brokerage is covering 3 to 5 times as many loads per day as he was 10 years ago.
He or she? Yeah.
He or she. So from 8 to 10 loads a day to 25 to 50 loads per day.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Efficiency. And so in a sense, as you mentioned later on in the article, you said the evolution of American freight markets, including a trend toward all of these things: growing percentage of brokered loads, faster transit times, more visibility, greater price transparency, more collaborative customer service. All of that leads to what is you've termed as a kind of a Red Queen dynamic. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, the Red Queen tells Alice that it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. And that's kind of what we mean. The way that we get a lot of research reports from Wall Street equities analysts who study transportation companies, and really to maintain the value of your company against your peers, you really have to invest heavily in technology. You have to keep innovating. They pay attention to these things. When they were, I think there was a Stiefel note about Echo, and they were kind of saying that like one of the reasons why they were giving them a good valuation was because they had this analytics-driven, customer-facing software that was allowing them to grow EBIT per employee. And Goldman Sachs, in one of their notes about brokerages, said that Landstar was saving 30% of its time per load with new software, which would give them an extra 20% of revenue per Landstar agent. So they're paying attention to it. So it's like...
So increasing efficiencies, and we're starting to use the term efficiencies so much, it's almost like becoming like jargon, or, like at some point we need to unpack what we mean by that. Right. Now is maybe not the time, but if
you're a carrier, it means being able to, one person being able to price more loads more accurately per day, a dispatcher being able to supervise more drivers per day.
Right. We have a general sense of what that means. We should probably...
If you're a broker, it means, covering more loads per day, that kind of thing. But the point is that if you're perceived as a technology leader, then your company is going to be intrinsically more valuable. If you're perceived as a technology laggard, your equity is going to be at a discount compared to your peers.
You're going to be falling behind, and watch out for the Red Queen. And speaking of which, like an interesting company that is still like it's a proprietary, it's in its Series B, but it hasn't been fully released and utilized in its full capacity yet. But it's Netradyne, and I hope we're pronouncing that right. But as far as Netradyne, this is fascinating, and I think this is whether we hear about them or they're kind of under the radar. You don't hear about them on a customer basis. They are going places. This is going to impact the industry from a number of different possible ways. Whether it's autonomous or insurance companies or like anybody who wants more like data about like driver behavior. And one of the unique ways, I don't know how familiar you are with the story, but like they've covered 100 million minutes of driving video data.
So they have cameras in the truck and outside the truck, looking at the driver behavior, looking at the sort of the behavior of vehicles in traffic, and also kind of looking all around the truck itself. And
they're top of the line, like super advanced AI based computer vision models.
Exactly. And like you said, they've recorded 100 million minutes of driving time.
Which what does that translate to?
So
what is that? 100 million minutes.
Right.
That sounds like a lot. Is that a lot? What is that?
It's a lot. It's a really significant data set. They
can you calculate that right now as we're talking about it? Because a driver typically drives like 8 or 9 hours a day.
So Netradyne estimated that a driver can drive between roughly between 400 and 500 minutes.
Minutes, right?
Which if you take 500 minutes, you take that's about 200,000. Driver days.
So a total of, if you do the math, that's 200. So far, they have over 200,000 driver days.
So that's like
of information minute by minute.
So it's like
filmed and analyzed.
It's like following 200 drivers a day every day for 3 years straight.
Wow!
So it's quite a bit of data.
That seems significant to me, but what are the implications?
Well, the thing about machine learning and artificial intelligence is that you have to build a really large training set of data to let the algorithms learn.
And most of them are doing it by the mile, not by the minute.
Right.
But the incumbents, they're tracking it by the mile, not the minute. The Netradyne is killing it.
Right, and it doesn't really matter how many miles it is. It matters how many minutes, because we care about stop and go traffic. We care about traffic jams where the driver gets bored and other motorists are angry and frustrated.
Right.
We care about you know what I mean. Like we care about what happens to a driver in the last 20 minutes of every trip when he or she is tired and maybe running out of their hours. You know what I'm saying?
And it's easy to talk about when what you just pointed out. It's like it's easy to say, drivers get tired or they get drowsy. Yep, that's true, they do. But the minute by minute, getting irritated with stoppages and all that, they're tracking it.
And not
constantly.
not to be big brotherish about it, but it's really about when you do
absolutely.
when you're completely exhausted and your brain is telling you to go to sleep and you're doing those head nods where you're their camera will see that and dispatch can alert you and say you need to pull over or you need to take a break, get some coffee. It's about safety. It's about understanding what causes accidents. And it's about helping drivers make safe decisions and take care of themselves.
I think the scary part about it, and the thing that, like, you know, like as we get closer to like learning about the driver behavior on a like moment by moment basis, is that it reveals to us the constant risks that are at stake, like the constant.
Yeah,
they're moving heavy machinery.
Yeah, you're moving 80,000 pounds down the road,
and they're tracking it in this. So the theme of this episode is about data, is about hardware and software meeting each other, for drivers and trucking. And and to me, there are real implications. They are tracking something in a very serious, systematic way. I'm cheering for Netradyne. They just raised a Series B, $21 million, based in a couple of places. They're based in San Diego and Bangladesh. Right. And really cool story by our colleague Vishnu.
He covers a lot of technology and startups. So definitely check Vishnu's stuff out on FreightWaves.com if you're interested in sort of the leading edge of transport tech.
Another thing that we want to briefly touch on, because it's a long-term forecast from our meteorologist wizard Nick Austin, is the El Nino impact to transportation over this winter. So buckle down because El Nino is happening.
And what does that mean? What is El Nino?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
I always hear that phrase, but what is El Nino?
Well, it means something's happening out in the Pacific.
Something like warm sea surface temperatures.
El Nino, it means warming, right?
It means the baby boy.
Wait, what is like, okay, so seriously, what is La Niña? And how, like, La Niña means the baby girl.
Right, I don't know.
El Nino, it means something's happening every about 3 to 5 years out in the Pacific. That is,
it impacts the Western Hemisphere.
Here's literally what happens, right? So there is either, whether it's El Nino or La Niña, and this year it seems to be a El Nino, which is, I believe, a warming.
Yes.
And something happens out in the Pacific, and in the Pacific Ocean, and depending upon the reason, it's kind of hard to predict a little bit, is how big of the size in the Pacific Ocean is this trend happening?
It was this warm patch of water,
and in this case, the warm patch of water, this is as simple as it gets. That warming trend in the Pacific will affect the jet stream, and then the jet stream will come over,
dip lower.
It will come over the United States of America in this case, in a different pattern than it normally does, and as you just said, it will dip lower
and brings colder and wetter weather to places like the Southeast.
And so for those in the southern regions, specifically probably the Southeast, it will mean wetter and colder weather.
Right. So,
but it also means things for the upper Pacific, like Northwest regions as well. Drier weather.
That's probably okay
specifically
for them.
Yeah, it's true. In terms of like what can you expect, and what should you get away from, and you might want to like trend away.
If we kind of see like an unpredictably snowy or icy winter in the Southeast, that could that disrupts things, because the Southeast doesn't have the plows, it doesn't have the salt, it doesn't have the infrastructure, the apparatus. Most of the civilian motorists have no clue how to drive on a road with half an inch of snow.
Oh, come on! Give the Southern people a little props.
I'm from Tennessee, but I spent 7 years in Michigan learning how to do all of this, and it's true.
I really feel like it's not so much about I don't know.
It's
Drivers are bad all over the place, but
It
it's
is.
about the infrastructure and the preparation,
Yeah.
like on
Yeah.
a state level. Like either they have the salt, and also though,
But I mean, these road. What I mean is that like if civilians crash on the interstate, that it doesn't matter if you're a professional truck driver and you know how to drive in a little bit of snow, like you're still going to be delayed because of someone else crashing. That's what I mean.
So yeah, that's the bottom line. It's a great story. I like the coverage from our correspondent Nick. Nick
our meteorologist. Nick
Technically,
Austin.
his technical term is Director of Weather Analytics and Senior Meteorologist.
Right, Nick Austin.
And check out that story. El Nino could significantly slow down the U.S. supply chain.
And we will keep
this winter.
We will keep covering this as it happens. Obviously, we cover severe weather because it really impacts the movement of trucks on the highways.
Absolutely.
If we get significant snowfall, or if that's forecast at all, you will hear about it on FreightWaves.com.
And I've specifically asked Nick, just like, hey, how accurate are these prognostications, these prophecies of yours? And he's actually, they're pretty accurate.
Yeah,
they're
right. Like everyone called for a pretty sort of low intensity hurricane season this year compared to last year. That's what we got.
But the thing that makes it unpredictable, like for our current methods, such as we are in 2018, is it's hard to know the size and scope of what we're calling El Nino.
Right.
How big of a patch is that coldness?
Warmness.
Warmness, my bad.
Right.
Yeah, like how big is it? And according to his article, some are saying it's larger than others, right?
Yeah,
others are saying
we'll see.
It's interesting.
We'll see it, and we'll keep you updated. And as we get into the winter proper, we'll have a better idea of how that's affecting the trajectory of the jet stream.
Let's try another segment here of Big Deal, Little Deal. I'm going to begin with you, JP. What is the deal with you? Okay? All right, well, ready or not, here we come. FTR and ACT report another banner month in the Class 8 order book. Big deal or little deal?
It's a little deal. Nothing about the manufacturing pipeline has changed, but it's interesting to the extent that it shows confidence on the part of carriers.
Amazon Delivery Service Partners was highly touted. Where does it stand after a few months? Big deal or little deal?
It's a big deal. It's a big issue. I think they're going to continue building this out. And, I think if you bet against Jeff Bezos, that's unwise.
Ford jumps into the e-bike bandwagon, buys e-scooter startup Spin. Big deal or little deal?
I'm going to say a little deal. I think it's a crowded marketplace. I don't necessarily think that large corporate ventures are the smartest entrants in this industry.
Barchart CEO Haraburda discusses financial data business and our new partnership. Big deal or little deal?
It's a big deal. FreightWaves is going to republish our stuff on Barchart.com, and we're importing their commodities data into Sonar, reaching millions more people every month. Konexial partners with Doc 411 to add dock information to My20 ELD and GoLoad matching platform. Big deal or little deal?
Little deal. A significant data sharing partnership for a couple of tech companies, neither of whom we know anything about their market share.
Will the new trade deal prevent Mexican trucks from entering the U.S.? Big deal or little deal?
Little deal until the clause is ever leveraged.
Keep Trucking introduces App Marketplace to leverage data-driven integrations for users. Big deal or little deal?
Big deal because it opens the door for so many other software companies to integrate their software.
GE Transportation Port Optimizer Technology Pilot Project increases supply chain performance at the Port of Long Beach. Big deal or little deal?
Easy for you to say. It's a little deal. The project is a big deal and could break down cultural barriers and lead to blockchain in the supply chain, but not yet. And it's a big deal that we failed in our mission to. Didn't we? Didn't we fail?
Oh.
I felt like we failed. But anyway, I'm happy to give the
Dang it.
I'm
low 5.
I'm a low 5 because I'm happy to give the appropriate commentary when necessary. How about you, JP?
Yeah,
Right.
I think that was a pretty solid episode. See you guys next week.
As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast.
And if you're interested in freight economics and finance, come to our Market Waves conference at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine, Texas this November. Visit marketwaves18.com to learn more about this event.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.